I rather like looking at beastly things with you, and this is a beastly mini PC. Core Ultra 9 185H. So it's 16 cores, 22 threads. 6 of those are the performance cores, and that's hyper-threaded, and then the rest are the efficiency cores. 5.1 gigahertz turbo. So this is Geekom's GT1 Mega Mini. We have ours configured like this. 32 gigabytes of DDR5 5600. You can get up to 64 in there. Both of the sticks on the inside are crucial. And then we have a 1 terabyte PCI Express Gen 4x4 NVMe M.2 SSD. You can get up to 2 terabytes, so you can get it configured that way. I was over here looking at some of the other stuff to see what it compares to. Sometimes you can compare it to this or the Ryzen 9 7940HS. Yeah, is it worth the extra money? Well, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Thanks to Hookeys for sponsoring this video. Now these are OEM Windows keys. That means that you do your own tech support. You're not going to be relying on Microsoft, and they're generally locked to the hardware. We got a coupon code. Click on buy now. Put in coupon code TS25, hit apply, and that price comes down. Now when you compare that to the outrageous prices from Microsoft, you'd have to buy this many times to equal the price of one regular key from Microsoft. As of right now, this Windows 10 Pro key will unlock Windows 11. We also have Windows 10 Home. Windows 11, you can buy it directly, Windows 11 Home, and we have 2 flavors of Office. Once you're finished, all you have to do is click on your user account up here, go to your user center, click on My Purchase Orders, just view keys and codes, and you can just copy and paste your key, hit start, type activate, click on activation settings, paste it in there, click on next, and you will be activated. So head on over to Hookeys.com to get yourself an OEM Windows key at a price that makes sense. Let's talk about all the specifications on this unit. So the dimensions on this, 139 by 132 by 43.5 millimeters, and this case is solid. It is really sleek. I've seen this case with other manufacturers, or at least one that's like almost the exact same build. This one just has a couple extra holes here and there. I've seen this very sleek single piece of metal used on a bunch of different mini PCs, and Geekom stuff is really sleek and very well built. So I was really happy when I opened it up and I was like, oh, I know this case. This is a very solid, nice case. They've got a few extra things because of all the ports. It's got a lot of awesome ports. So let's just go through all that. Let's look at the front first. We have 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2. Lots of USB on the front, and they're all Type A. I think that's kind of cool. All right, so the back, we have 2 of the USB 4, 40 gigabits per second that supports 8K video as well. And the USB 4 will also deliver up to 15 watts of power, which is the PD 3.0 spec. You can also hook this up to external devices like eGPUs and whatever. The video output is a DisplayPort 1.4 through the USB. And then we have 2 HDMI ports. Those are HDMI 2.0. So you can have 4 monitors going at the same time, some 8K, some 4K, just you can go crazy with all this. Then you'll see we have 2 Ethernet ports. Those are both 2.5 gigabit NICs. And this is fast, just look how fast this is. 2.5 gigabits per second with the NIC, look at that, 275, yes. That's what I want. Now, having 2 of those, are you going to use 2 of those? If you're just using Windows, probably not. If you want to use this as a server, you might just use that, but maybe, it's up to you. Comes with Windows 11 Pro. The Bluetooth is version 5.4. Then we also have Wi-Fi 7 on board. On the back, we also have a mount, so you can either mount it on the wall, Visa mountable, so you can put it on the back of a monitor or something like that. You can mount it so it'll be like out of everyone's way, and since it's small and lightweight, you could just hide it behind your monitor, and there you go. So the new Intels do come with an NPU. It's an AI processor. I'm not a big AI advocate, but if you're doing AI stuff and you're doing it locally on your machine, it can help with that. One of the things I think AI is useful for is like making your videos look better when you're doing conferencing and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about like the beautification, even though if you wanted to do that, I ain't gonna judge if you wanna make yourself look all pretty, that's fine. But a lot of times it can balance out the lighting using algorithms. It can help to just generally make your stuff look better, blur out your background so people can't see your messy room and all that. That will give it a bit of a boost. Let's take the bottom off and just have a look under the hood. So we got 4 feet, they come off, you just kind of peel them off and they clip in there very intelligently. Then we have 4 screws. Once you remove that, I had to get a little shim under there and remove the bottom plastic piece. Once you remove that, we have a big metal plate. It requires 4 screws. You remove that, and then we have a couple thermal pads over on the left side, and that's where your M.2 is going to go. Now, we have one installed, and there's a slot for a smaller M.2. Looks like a 2242 slot right there. It looks like we would have room for a 2280 slot, but there's only a 2242 slot, so Don't know what's up with that. It would have been nice to have an extra full-size M.2 slot, but we don't. You can still put a smaller one in there, so it is what it is with that. Then you can also see we have our RAM over there, and that's all crucial stuff on the inside. All right, let's jump in and take a look at some benchmarks and just see how fast this is. All right, let's see what we got here. Our pass mark score. We ran all the tests. CPU mark, 32,500.7. 2D graphics, 863. You can see everything right here. 3D graphics, 6,923.5. Memory mark, 3,211. Disk mark, 35,980. And our overall score, 7781.1. Want to see all the details? Here we go. Here's our GPU mark details. I'm just going to skip through these so you can see them all. GPU mark again. 2D mark scores. Just pause on any of these screens if you need to see anything. 3D mark, DirectX 12, etc., etc. Memory mark right here. And finally, our disk mark score, sequential read 4938. And the write is also very respectable, 4383. That's our pass mark performance test. Let's take a look at Geekbench 6. Single core 2502 and the multi-core is 13839. Scroll down here so you can see all the tests individually. Pause if there's something here that means a lot to you, like maybe that HTML5 or clang. Is that important? And then for OpenCL, 39,786. If you're comparing at home, scroll on down here and let you take a look at all of those individual benchmarks right there. All right, let's take a look at Cinebench. Now, since this has the combination of efficiency and performance cores, when we do our single core benchmark, we see that the performance cores are beefy. Look at that. So our single core score is pretty good, 1855. Now note, these are 11th gen. So, I mean, newer stuff is going to obviously be competing with this. But yeah, you know, the 7700K is still kind of quick. All right, let's take a look at the multi-core score here. And multi-core score is 15666. Look out. I'm going to run Crystal Disk Mark to check the drive performance, but I also am going to be monitoring the smart. So right now we're at 49 degrees Celsius. Nothing really to scream and yell about until we get, you know, up above. I guess I don't really care until it gets to 80. All right, 52. We've topped out at 52 here during the write test. And these read and write speeds are very nice. I like how similar the read and write speeds are. So yeah, 52, 53. All right, so this is looking really good. 57 was the top, 71 if you're looking at drive temperature 3 right there. But all these numbers are well within spec. As far as heatsink goes, there's a thermal pad that kind of gets mashed on top, and they're using just a big old piece of metal as like the heatsink on top of that. So it's doing a pretty good job of dissipating the heat. And there's nothing to worry about right there as far as the temperature goes. When it comes to the speed, pretty decent speeds as well. I like how it's almost the same on the read and the write, as you can see right there. Let's take a look at the IOPS. We got 206,110 on the read IOPS and 134,775 on the write IOPS, so it looks really nice. You know, a program like Premiere is going to work just fine, but you know, just to show how crazy it is, I'm going to put both these things on full, which means it's going to be 4K in both windows. 100 megabits per second is what I'm shooting at, so 100 megabits per second, 4K on both of these windows. Let's do a little transition. How about we transition over to me messing with this thing? I mean, this feels just as snappy as my crazy big computer right now. See how painful this cross dissolve is. Now it's ludicrous to be running 4K and 4K over here because both of these windows are not 4K. So you should be running these at half so they're 1080p, but whatever. Just doing it just to show you how snappy it is. And let's see how that dissolve goes. Oh yes, not a hitch at all. Like completely flawless dissolve. So yeah, it's gonna be just fine for editing. Y'all like bananas? Now these Intels are impressive. 5,821, minimum 37.57, average 43.54. All right, let's take a look at Valley. Unigine Valley 1080p benchmark, 78.9 FPS with a minimum of 31.3, overall score 3,300. Looking pretty good right there. So Intel finally has a system that beats the Ryzen 9 7940HS. We're going to do a little Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm going to start off here just with the low setting. Start off here with the low setting and just see how it runs. You know, in my opinion, this game looks awesome even on the low setting. Like, take a look at all this stuff, like the fog and the lighting, shadows. I think it looks great. I mean, it looks a lot better on Ultra, but for what it is, low looks pretty good. All right, and here's where we see the AMD's Now here's where we see the AMD start to differentiate itself when compared to the Intel. The Intel on low setting gets 40.15 FPS, minimum of 34.76, so yes, it is playable. Just for comparison, the AMD Ryzen 9 7940HS with an AMD Radeon 780M running on the medium setting gets 48 FPS. So the medium setting is like almost 20 FPS higher than the low setting on Intel. So I'll just give you that as a point of reference, and we'll continue to benchmark the Intel. Alright, on the medium, 36.52 with a minimum of 31.56. Getting close to that 30 point. Let's see if it can even do high. And there you have it, the performance on high, 29.73 FPS. So not really playable, but if you're going to play this, you're going to have to play it on low on this machine. You know, I'd say the Intel will work just fine with a game like this, but I would probably play other games. But, you know, if you really want to, it'll be just fine. All right, I want to see how Baldur's Gate 3 plays. And, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 will work, the Intel Arc will work with AMD FSR because it's open source. So I'll turn it on and see what happens. And I'm going to run everything else on just the overall medium presets. Everything's medium. Let's go ahead and bring up the anisotropic filters to 16x. It'll make the background look better without really much of, you know, any hit to the FPS. So here we are. And we're running at 37 FPS on mostly medium, which is completely fine for me. 42. Now, when you get into cities like Baldur's Gate and stuff, it's going to, you know, hit your frame rate pretty hard. So when you're in Baldur's Gate, what I'm going to say is just put it on low for those portions of the game. But when you're here in the Underdark and other places like this, you can absolutely get away with running it on medium or even high if you wanted to, if you're okay with running it around 30 FPS. So yeah, I think it's just fine because this is not like an action shooter or anything like that. You don't need quick twitch reflexes. You just need turn-based combat. And otherwise, oh no, oops. Whoops. I mean, most people are not even playing with the WASD mod like I am. They're just clicking around. So super high, you know, frame rates are not going to be that big of a deal. Let's try it on high because it does look really nice on high and just see how it runs. Let's turn off AMD FSR and just run it and see what happens. All right, so 26 FPS. It's pretty. Crank it up to take your screenshots if you want to. But yeah, I would not run this on high. Medium with a little bit of FSR. Yeah, this is making me dizzy. Let's have a look at Tears of the Kingdom on the last version of Yuzu. You see that stuttering? That's because we're building shaders, but I think you'll be able to play this after the shaders get built. It's better than it is on the Switch. Because that thing sometimes struggles to get 20, 25 FPS when you're in like, especially when you're in like a forest area or whatever. But this one, when you're not building the shaders, it runs okay. So I think we'll be all right on this. Now, if you want it to run a little bit better, just put it into the handheld mode, which runs at a little bit lower resolution. Now we're getting 49, 48 FPS. If it weren't for those shaders that are building. All right, let's let the shaders finish, and then we'll see. So whatever the stupid things are building. So yeah, I think you'll be able to play this. Just be patient. Let it stutter for a little bit when you first start. Once the shader cache gets built, you'll be in business. I don't think it'll be, you know, insane, but I am impressed. You know, I knew this game was going to play just fine. We're kind of like stuck at 60 FPS, meaning that I think we could probably crank up the resolution, but we're running at native resolution. So we could probably crank this up to like double resolution and still be okay. Oh God, what are you doing? I just wanted an excuse to play this, really. But we are running just fine. Have at it. So I just started up an AIDA64 stability test, and we're just kind of taxing the hell out of this thing just to see how, 93 degrees. These Intel Core Ultras are hot. Come back in 15-20 minutes and see if it's not on fire. Okay, this has been cooking for 20 minutes and 50 seconds. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of CPU throttling right here, but it seems to have stabilized around 74. But you can see there's all kinds of spikes. When it first started, that's when it spiked. So we were waiting on the cooling to catch up. So that's kind of what happened right there. So the initial core temperature of 101C, that happened right here in the beginning. And I'm also, you can see over here, I've got hardware info up so I can get all the details and we can see what's going on. But, 74 is not bad. I don't like that initial spike. And that's probably where most of the overheating and the throttling was detected. But right here, 74, if it runs like this for a while, that's totally fine. And it's been running like that. I checked on it, 5-10 minutes ago, and it was around the same temperature. So that's okay. All right, so when it comes to the fans, my room is at like 42 decibels. So let's do a little test here and just see what we get. 53.6. Yes, indeed, this you can hear. It's one of the loudest mini PCs I've tested in quite a while, louder than the previous Intel mini PC that was just a little over 50 decibels, but this one's getting close to 54 decibels. So yep, the Intel Core Ultras are just loud and hot. That's the nature of the beast with these things. Every single one that I've tested has been really warm, and they also have to be loud enough to keep up with all this heat. So yeah. All right, it's fast. It's really freaking fast. This one might be the fastest mini PC that I've seen in every category except for the gaming stuff, because the AMDs are just too strong. So if you're getting this for gaming, I mean, if you got the budget for it, go ahead and get a USB 4 dock and then run an external graphics card whenever you want to do gaming. But if not, then the AMDs are going to be faster for a lot of the games. If you don't care about playing like the most modern cutting edge stuff, well, you could see how it played. It played Baldur's Gate. That works. You know, it's slightly faster on the AMDs, but it works. So you can play those. That's the point, is you can play them just fine on this machine. I can't believe how much faster Intel has gotten over the last generation with the new ARCs. They're so much faster. Almost as fast as the 780M that AMD has been using for too long now. When are they going to get something new? So yeah, Intel's definitely catching up. Now, where this, I think, excels over the AMD in the competition is just the fact that it has so many cores. And you know, the base is 3.8 gigahertz and it turbos up to 5.1. I wouldn't expect it to stay at 5.1 too long because it gets warm. It gets really, really hot. The only difference between this and like the Ultra 7 155H is that one turbos to 4.8. So that's, and I think the base frequency is a little bit lower. But you know, the Ultra 7 is also a very interesting option because it also has 16 cores and 22 threads. So it's basically the same, but the Ultra 9 is just a higher clock speed. So where I can see this being kind of special is if you wanted to run a Proxmox server or just like a VM server and just have all kinds of systems, you could easily run multiple copies of different operating systems, various distributions of Linux. You could run a couple different full-on desktops of Windows and have them all up and running at the same time, and you probably wouldn't notice it. So it would make you'd have a bunch of thin clients with this thing as the heart. That would be totally fine, as a matter of fact. And I don't think anyone would even notice. They would just be like, oh, we're using a thin client. This is a real computer. But no, it's all running on this. This tiny little thing could be thin client for a whole bunch of PCs, if you ask me. That would be a really cool use case scenario because you do have those two 2.5 gigabit NICs, and you could use those. Split them up between the different VMs and stuff. So it could be great for that. If you're just going to keep the one operating system on there, I say just the one because it's powerful enough for doing multiple things at the same time. Well, yeah, it's going to be good for video editing and just big time productivity stuff on a tiny little box. If you're doing audio creation, I don't talk about that as much as I should because I do a lot of audio creation, but something like this would be totally fine to run your DAW and have all kinds of stuff going on in the background. You got all these threads, you got the speed, and you have a lot of RAM, so you could be running a lot of VSTs at the same time. So there's a lot of use cases for this. It's a very powerful little tiny computer. One thing I don't like about it is it's a little bit louder than a lot of the similarly priced PCs. The cooling unit does a pretty good job after that first initial bump up. After it screams and it gets to 90 or 100, it's stop that. And then it did do a good job of keeping things around 75 degrees after the initial spike. So yeah, the cooling does a good job, but you can hear it. So for me, if I needed this in an environment where I didn't want to hear the fans, that would be kind of like But to be fair, all of the Intels that I've tested, all the new Intel Core Ultras, have all been really warm. This one with their Ice Blast 2.0 cooling system, it actually kept it cooler than most. You got cold air coming in the sides and then it exhausted all out the back. So it did a better job than most, but these Core Ultras are just warm if you're running them at max. If you're doing like a VM and stuff, you're probably not going to be running them at 100%. So I wouldn't worry about it too awful much. But yeah, it's all dependent upon what you're going to do. This is a lot of computer in a very, very tiny, sleek case. So Geekom, cheers. This is a nice product, well made, and it's a very solid unit as usual. But the prices do go up and down, and maybe you're watching this in a couple of months and you want to know what the current price is. All the links are in the description, so you can head over to their Amazon page, take a look at the links there, or there's also going to be a link directly to their store page so you can see. Maybe it'll be on sale again, I don't know. And speaking of stuff that's on sale, head over to epicpants.com. We got you covered for all your peripherals. These are all USB 2. So you could put 90 of them in one of those 3.2 ports and you'd be just fine. Just get 90 of these mice since they're on sale for $19.99 and it's a flawless infrared sensor. You just get 90 of those and see how many you can plug up to one of those 3.2 ports. Do it. USB 4, 2,000 of them. Check out our t-shirts and everything else over at epicpants.com. And mouse pads, half price. Get it while it's here, I guess. Yes. See you in the comments.